This episode of Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet is brought to you by Netflix. That's right. For a free 30-day trial, all you got to do is go and head on over to netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV, sign up with the URL, and get hooked up with the Netflix free 30-day trial. Go, go, go. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet for episode 14, August 26th. The 26th, 2013. I'm Gary again. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. What do we got coming up on today's show? We've got all the info on crowd control. Jeremy Gaffney talks about the lack of the lifetime subscription and colors everywhere, but not a drop to the drink. All that and more, but first, joining us out as always, Mr. Farhan Siddiqui. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Excellent. It's a Monday, and it's WildStar talking. And joining us from the beach, the Guinness, kicking it back, living the life, living the dream from Myrtle Beach on vacation, Mark Taylor.
What's going on, everybody?
Nothing. You're a hardcore trooper doing the show from the beach. He's like, family, get out of here. I got a show to do. And they all scuttled off, and you're here to talk WildStar. That's commitment. I don't know. I'd probably be on the beach.
Dude, my back is so burned right now. I was at the beach all morning long.
Oh, nice. All right, so we're going to talk crowd control. Oh, but first, I got a little thing here. I know it's a WildStar show, but lots of people looking for the Hearthstone giveaways. We've got keys. All you got to do is go to hearthnation.com, brand new website the Gamebreaker just launched, part of the Gamebreaker Media Network. Brand new all Hearthstone website, hearthnation.com. Go there. All the details are there. Page, sign up, Facebook thing, all kinds of stuff. And good luck. Contest ends, I think, this coming Friday, and then we give out the keys. Good luck. All right, so let's talk crowd control, guys. We got some cool footage last week on the latest Dev Speak. We can't actually play it here. Thanks so much, YouTube, for that. But you can listen to the sweet sounds of our voices describing it. So, check this out. When you're in crowd control in WildStar, obviously you're not totally screwed. You actually have to break out. So something that we'd seen this example, the first example I want to talk about a little bit before. So disarm, it literally knocks the weapon out of your hand, but you can actually run over and pick it up really quick. I think this is such an awesome mechanic. Like almost all these crowd control mechanics, I'm super psyched about. But even this first one, I'm like, it's such a great way to be able to break something, but at the same exact time, you don't have the ability to attack right away. You don't have you've got to go and scuttle and kind of like be a little bit disoriented and get your weapon. I don't know. I think it's a great mechanic. What do you guys think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like a lot of fun. I think one of the things that's sort of missing in a lot of games is just the feeling, because like the drawback of crowd control is, you lose control of your character, obviously, and in PvP that gets really frustrating because it's like, oh, I can't, respond. And so what they usually try to do is they try to limit how much crowd control you can put on them. But I think, coming from the other side and trying to say, okay, well, you can try to respond to that. You can try to, what would you actually do if you were in a fight and you got disarmed? You wouldn't just be like, well, I gotta wait for it to magically appear in my hand. Okay, maybe not the best example, but, you still would, try to do something to get back into control.
I was gonna say, if this is gonna frustrate you in PvP, wait till we start talking about the ones coming up, because man,
yes,
I'm super happy that they're doing this kind of thing. I don't know. I saw this market. I was just like, I can't believe nobody's done this before in this manner. All of these things like combined, but it's even starting with this first one. I don't know. Does this sound like a mechanic that you're actually going to enjoy, or do you think it might be kind of a nuisance?
So, I mean, I think it's completely awesome for a number of different reasons, because I guess the closest thing to a disarm that I've seen has been like an interrupt, like you can't do cast your spell, or you can't do whatever that attack is for like 3 to 5 seconds, after that point. So now they actually give you some kind of graphical, thing to kind of tell you, okay, I have been disarmed, but now it also gives you a way to get out of it. And even if the time that you spend to go, chase your weapon or go grab it is really the same amount of time you would have been disarmed, interrupted, or whatever, it at least makes it not suck because you at least have the illusion of choice, right? You at least are doing something proactive to get your weapon back, even if nothing more than you're getting out of the way of being just pummeled. Because the most frustrating thing, like you guys just said about being CC'd, especially in PvP, is just sitting there waiting to get your ass kicked, right? Especially like in most games, like like another game from a couple years ago that's sci-fi based, where you're just stun locked, right? That everyone will talk about. That's the most frustrating thing in my entire life I've ever had to deal with. Is just sit there and get stunned. Oh,
there's nothing. There's no fun gameplay at that point. Like you're just idle. You're not even engaged. Like you're just waiting. Like it's just like, okay, I gotta wait. That's why I think all of these ideas actually they come from such the opposite angle as we go through them. It's like they all, for the most part, promote you to be actually more engaged with the game, which is actually kind of cool. I think so. Some people are going to disagree on some of these because some of them are pretty controversial. Go ahead, Farhan.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, basically what they're doing, and this is true across a lot of different systems, is they're basically looking, okay, what is why is this system in games? And so, like, what problem was that solving? And then, like, how can we solve that problem differently? Like just thinking about it, maybe not always solving the problem differently. Like, they kept the Holy Trinity, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so for some things, they're like saying, no, we want to actually stick with this. But for other things, they're like thinking, okay, like something like other games, like diminishing returns on crowd control or something like that. What was that trying to solve? Well, it was trying to solve the fact that it's frustrating getting CC'd over and over and over. So it's like, what else can we do? Well, maybe we can actually make it an active thing that you try to get out of crowd control. And I think that's just brilliant. I also really like that in specifically with the disarming, everyone sees where the weapon goes over there. And so that just, like, especially in PvP, that's going to be really interesting. What I hope is that it'll end up being something where, if I disarm you, then I can see, okay, your weapon's over there, and then I lay down like a heavy-hitting telegraph over there that you would normally want to just dodge out of or whatever, and maybe that would be easy to dodge out of, but like it's sort of like, okay, well, if you want to get your weapon, then you're going to have to take this damage. So then, it's sort of like levels of strategy that can evolve out of that. I hope they answer that.
And they showed that in the video too.
Yeah, they showed that, like, the weapon went over there to the side, and the player tried to, like, jump after it and got hit by some big explosion thing, so they got knocked back away from it. So, that's definitely, like, an emergent gameplay thing that'll just be happening already anyway.
There's a few more examples. I want to get you guys' take on this next one here. So the next example that you guys, they said if you're knocked down, you can just roll back to your feet. Is there any clarification on this? Because I sort of feel like it might just be a little bit more of an animation than anything else. I mean, can it get you out any quicker? Is there actually any gameplay, or is it just literally visual?
I think what it implies is that, when the way they worded it, I think it's like, okay, so if you got knocked down, then maybe it'll take a couple seconds to get back up, which is pretty normal. But then, like, if you use, like, your dodge key or your, I think in WildStar it's actually called dash, if you dash out of it, then that might be a way to, like, just break out of specifically knocked down CC. So you could just get up slowly, or you could just use your dodge. And like Guild Wars, you have, like, 2 dodges with it recharging over time. So if you want to actually consume that resource of dodging, then you can use it.
But do you think that consuming that resource dodge is actually what's going to trigger this rolling to your feet animation style thing, or is
I think it would be like an immediate, like, I think it would be like an immediate, like, just sort of like immediately transition into that dodge animation, as opposed to like having this little getting up animation or whatever.
But that's also where the skill is going to come into it, because most people, especially when they're new to PvP, or even if they're just unskilled at PvP, they go in there and they get knocked down, right? And so they're normally sitting there, trying to figure out what just happened to them, or they might be looking around, which is all taken on time, in which case, if there's any other DPS or focus on you, you're taking damage that entire time. Whereas, if you're more skilled and you're playing an action-based MMO, like Terra or some of these things, they're basically saying, okay, you get knocked down, roll out of it, or dodge forward, or, you can double tap left or right, and your tune will start moving out of it. For people who are less skilled or just not experienced with it, they're going to usually sit there until the character gets back up, under whatever time that is, and then you hit the forward key and you start rolling out of it. So, I mean, they've given you something for almost all the different types of CC, from a snare, a root, a knockdown, a knockback, an interrupt, and now the disarm, which to me is just like a variation of the interrupt, right?
Yeah,
So
and then that,
I was gonna say
and
really quick,
another
am I
thing that
right?
you,
Am I right that if you don't engage though, about what you guys talking about, so you will eventually recover if you don't do anything, correct?
yeah,
With
Yeah,
that's
okay,
true for
you'll
all of
get
these
back up.
crowd control effects.
it's just
Like
gonna be
whether
a
it's
longer timer.
yeah, so whether it's disarm, the weapon will just magically reappear in your hand after however many seconds, or
Okay.
for knockdown, you'd get back up, and just along what Mark was saying, it is like something that the very new players will probably be like, oh, I got knocked down, and they might not know to use your dodge or whatever to get back up immediately. But then there's like another layer of like, okay, do I want to actually use up my dodges to do this? And this is something that I saw a lot in Guild Wars 2 PvP, especially when you got to the higher levels of it, is that people just sort of learn, okay, just dodge constantly, and then they end up wasting their dodges. The other team is keeping track and says, oh, that person's used 2 dodges. Just lay down a heavy attack on them. Now they won't be able to get out of it. And so that becomes like another layer of strategy. Like, do I actually want to use that resource on this thing, or do I want to wait in case something else happens?
Now this next one, Farad, this one's hilarious because this one for PvP is amazing. If you get disorientated in the game, your controls, your actual controls, like wherever you map them, WASD, up, down, actually get remapped. So up is down, right is left. All your controls are actually kind of screwed up for you. So good luck with hitting anything. But I can't imagine how much fun this is actually going to be in PvP. I mean, it's going to be.
It's like brilliant because basically you're just sort of messing with their head. All of their muscle memory of getting out of dodges is just suddenly just like backfires on you. And one thing that I'm going to just be giggling at is for all the players who I know that this is like a hardcore PvP kind of thing. That a lot of players just unbind backpedal, right? Because they don't want to ever backpedal. And so now you can't move forward while you're disoriented. I think that'll just be hilarious.
It's going to be ridiculous when you're just going to see like characters running like different ways and stuff like this. But again, this is going to add such a high level of like skill cap to be effective during PvP because you're going to have to basically train your muscle memory and your brain to kind of also react when you're in this state.
Yeah, and I mean this is something that like skilled PvPers will probably be able to get out of, like, because I think this is a kind of mechanic that they've tried in fighting games a lot, like just having like sort of a thing where your controls get reversed, and like the really good fighting game players will just like no problem, they'll just start pushing everything in reverse and everything's fine for them. But for the vast majority of people, I think it'll be really frustrating.
I hope this one's fun. The one thing that scares me is like this one sounds great on paper and it makes me laugh and giggle, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be the comedy value alone is really fun. But I do hope that it's actually fun. Go ahead, Mark.
So I was just going to say, do we know or have we heard, if it's static? So, for example, like you get, knocked or stunned or whatever, that left is up and backward is forward or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, but if they just remap randomly, that would be amazing. Yeah, just you don't even know.
Then you're like trying to figure it out as you're playing, like, oh, which way is forward? Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, if they go ahead and they make it random, then that's gonna be perfect. Because if they don't, then somebody's just gonna have like if you have like a G19 keyboard or one of those smart.
I'll push a button.
As soon as you get
to
stunned, you
it.
just hit the button for this is the stunned mapping, and then they're back to normal.
I guess it's still. Yeah. I mean, it still adds a level. Like I said, in any other game, you'd be completely screwed while you're disorientated. Like again, you'd be kind of like waiting for a tick. And I don't know. I like the idea that in WildStar, if you're ready for it, no problem. Like if you want to practice this and get really good, like you can get this, but you're going to be engaged the entire time, even in those normal times of most games where you're just kind of like disengaged. How do you think this is going to work in PvE if you inflict that on a mob? I mean, do mobs like auto start sucking really bad during the effect and just start like wandering all over and acting like they don't know which way to go? I mean, or do you think they actually have a chance to figure it out? Like, it's got to be effective on mobs, right?
Maybe they'll just like move around randomly for a bit or something. I'm not just be like, start walking around.
I would think that it probably only happens when mobs hit you.
Right.
You think?
Well, I mean, like they might have like a player versus player disorient, and then in that case, like as long as it works in PvE, then you'd be able to apply it to a mob. Who knows if it works?
I mean, it probably will do it for the mobs eventually, because the one consistent theme that I've always heard, Jeremy, I've met him about 3 times now. Every single time that he gets a chance, when they look at something that's cool that goes in favor of the player, they do it. So that is something that's just completely different than I've seen in any other development staff. And it's not like all these other development staffs like are bad or stupid. It's just the fact that they just had that aha moment that they're like, hey, this net on this system just ends up being a win for the players. Okay, let's keep it and let's extend it across the board. So they are consistently when it comes to some kind of mechanic that ends up just working in the favor, unless it's obviously going to be game breaking or something. Then they keep it, and not only do they keep it, but they take the engineering rigor to make sure that it scales across the game. So to your point, they probably will add that. If it's not in there now, then they'll probably add it over time.
So this next example they gave was blind, which it's a little difficult to maybe see this image, but that's because it's a little difficult to see this image. so basically, you will still be able to use your abilities, so you can still hit things, but this is what your field of view is going to look like when you're blind. How damn cool is that?
Yeah, you have like this barely a little field of vision, like right where these two little slits, I guess, where your eyes are supposed to be, but everything else is just like black and blobby and crazy. I guess it's really fun.
I guess if you're aware of your surroundings, you could possibly be okay, or you just might heal a tree and then get yelled at by everybody.
Yeah, I mean that's the objective they make in the video. They're like, "Oops, you just healed a tree. Well done there."
I mean, it's awesome that they put that in there, because normally when you see a blind or you see that nomenclature given to it when you go through the logs, when you play a game that allows you to use logs, it's because normally what that is a debuff, and then all your attacks are like minus 70% or whatever it is. That's a debuff. For the first time, going along with this whole action theme MMO, you are actually experiencing the debuff. You actually get to feel what the debuff feels like. So instead of just having your attack suck for 10 seconds, you just can't see for 10 seconds. So what that does is it's back to that whole coolness factor, just like you just said. What if you just kind of can figure out your surroundings and kick the crap out of somebody? Now that player that's skilled enough that, whether that's maybe more of a first-person capability shooter or whatever, you might actually get some kind of blind monk action to just whip your ass after you get them with the blind. You know what I mean? So it just is cool. I mean,
God, I don't want to be on the receiving end of that, because that in guild chat will never go away. Be like, dude, you got so owned by that blind dude. Like you couldn't even see it. He kicked your ass. You'll never live that down. You got your ass kicked by the guy who was blinded.
But I'm waiting for that moment.
Yes. What? So again, I gotta ask, what do you guys think is gonna happen with PvE targets? What is it?
Maybe they just won't turn with you anymore. They'll just keep doing telegraphs right where they were aiming before.
Am I wrong in thinking that these are all going to work against all PvE? I would assume that all this is going to work. Like they're just going to start wandering around. It's got to have some sort of effect on them.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be weird for them to not have whole levels of crowd control in the game for mobs or something like that. Like just tons of crowd control for PvP only or something like that.
That would be totally weird.
I guess it's not even PvP only. It'd be mobs against you, but you can't counter it. Not as fun.
So then there's also a tether. So it's something basically holding you in place. You better destroy it. This one sounds a lot like what happens in Guild Wars 2, right? I mean, which is a great mechanic. Sounds quite similar though.
I think the idea of having a target that you actually have to destroy in order to respond to it is pretty cool. It's sort of like the Ranger's ability in Guild Wars 2, where you sort of hit the button and then little roots appear around you or something. And I think a few different other professions had abilities like that, where you'd have to destroy the thing that was the roots that were holding you still. Instead, this mine is I think one person who was interviewing one of the Carbine people called it a space fire hydrant that's tethering or something. You have to destroy the space fire hydrant. So yeah, should be cool.
So all of those, I love all of these on paper. I can't wait to play them. This last one here, people are kind of on the fence a little bit about, but I kind of actually like this in games. It's a little less cool. But if you're when you're stunned, you basically mash the F key to break free, which is so many console games really do this, breaking out of stuff. You got to fill up the meter really fast, start tapping really quickly. I mean, it's not so strategic as far as gameplay goes, but I don't know, at least it kind of like gets you engaged in the game. And I know when I'm playing like console games and I'm kind of in that, you got like a zombie like biting at your neck or something and you're just like, ah, and you're like smashing as fast as you can, like it kind of creates a level of tension. And I think that adds also, again, that's going to add that emotional reaction in the middle of PvP and stuff when you're dealing with real life players. I think really helps just kind of like, peaks and valleys of your emotions and like your actual like gameplay elements. So I don't know. Our producer didn't like this one though. I liked it.
The main like hardcore player concern over it is that people will just macro it out or something, and they'll basically have a button that will mash the button for them.
As fast as
and I know that Scooter, the one of the Carbine community managers, he actually said that what they've already done is they've sort of put in like a maximum rate so that someone with a macro doesn't really have an advantage over someone who's mashing the button. Like basically
right.
it won't take in input any faster than what they would expect a human to normally be able to put in. And like I agree with you, Gary. I think that it's actually not that bad because it is just trying to engage you a little bit, just to keep you in the moment rather than feeling like you're just sitting back and just like, okay, it's done.
That's what I mean. Like, I'd rather do that than not wait. Like, I feel like some people don't feel like it's interesting gameplay just by smashing a key, but I feel like it's better than nothing, or just like trying to counter it.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, it gets you engaged, right? I mean, even if the amount of time that you're sitting there, spamming your F key equals or nets out to be the exact same amount of time that you would have just stayed there done, you at least feel like you're doing something. You have the illusion of choice. That's the biggest thing that CC takes away from you. When you just feel helpless,
That's the thing. I remember watching chat and they're mixed right now about the same thing, and there's some people are against it. It's like, but it's a stun. Like, think about it. You can't move, so you can't fight, and basically, like, what else could you possibly do? Now you're just like waiting, like you're doing nothing.
The other nice thing about it, and which is sort of like from a game design perspective, is that it's like a really nice way of sort of rebalancing how long stuns that players have against creatures last versus how long they last against players, because you just like set whatever the rate is that the maximum rate of pushing the button is, and that's your player versus player stun, and then versus like creatures, they're not going to be mashing an F key, so it'll last longer when you're using it in PvE. So I mean, just from a game design standpoint, it's really brilliant of them because it's like a way of doing it without it feeling gamey,
I guess the only thing that you could really bring up, though, is that if their philosophy behind CC is that you can work through it, that possibly a CC with no real counterplay, you could make the argument, shouldn't be in the game. Yeah,
I could see that. I mean, like, I think that one thing that they could consider is trying to redo the way that stun works, like maybe it not being completely just like you can't do anything or something like that, and trying to redo it. But I think that it is fine to actually have something a little bit more just visceral, like just mashing a key. I think it can be fun.
You're going to be mashing the key regardless of if there was an F that would break you out anyway.
You'd be mashing a different key. You'd be like 2-2-2-2-2 instead.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be mashing keys even in games that don't even have these mechanics. Normally the status quo for MMOs for CC, which is usually to sit there and be hosed, right? Normally that is what you do. You sit there and you wait for your hosing to be complete, and you hope that maybe someone else can draw the aggro or something so that you're not hosed. This, if nothing else, is a bold step to try to do something different. We don't even know if it's going to be ultimately successful. It looks cool. It looks like it'll be successful, but we don't really know. But at least they're making the attempt. But at the end of the day, I think this is probably the third time I've said it. It gives you, if nothing else, the illusion of choice that you're not just going to sit there and wait to be hosed, right?
Yeah. Jumping back to the PvE front, can someone explain this to me? So, I mean, we've known about not unlike any other game out there that I can think of, bosses can be crowd controlled as well. But in WildStar, it's going to actually work a bit different, right?
Yeah, so in most games when you're able to actually CC a boss, and usually that's just because, they flag this specific boss is not immune to stun or something like that, or during this specific phase it's not immune to stun or something like that. And so, we've talked about this before, WildStar has a system of interrupt armor. So basically, different creatures might have a certain number of crowd control that they can just ignore, and then after you've used up all of their interrupt armor, then CCs will start to go through. It is very similar to a system that was used in Guild Wars 2, called like Defiant or something like that, where basically it sort of worked in reverse, I think, where they started not immune to CC, and then you could use the crowd control, and then they would gain charges of Defiant that you would then have to work through similarly to armor. Now, one of the things that really backfired with Guild Wars 2 when they had that system was that it was really hard to coordinate it because only one CC would go through. So to give you an example, let's say a mob had 3 stacks of Defiant on it, and you would need to work through those stacks. You just all spam your CC, and if the 4th CC that happens to hit him is like a crappy weak CC or something, then you're screwed, because then you're gonna have to go through the whole CC thing again, because it'll get even more stacks of Defiant after that, and you won't actually get like the really nice crowd control to actually land. I think in Interrupt Armor it's a little bit different because they start out at max, and then presumably when they get down to 0, then you have like a brief period of time when they have no Interrupt Armor, and then any CC at that point can go through. So at that point you can spam like your weaker CCs to get them to 0 Interrupt Armor, and then you can feel pretty assured that, okay, your stronger CCs can go through at that point. It's a slight difference, but I think it'll actually make a big difference in how it actually plays out, because Defiance Interrupt Armor in Guild Wars 2 was really hard to actually use effectively.
I want to talk a little. Good, Mark.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the one part that gets added into CC, and I don't even know if it's categorized fully as CC, is Taunt, right? That's the one that ends up getting, taken away from you when you start fighting bosses, and it has a lot of categorizations that are similar to CC, but because it is controlling the boss. But a lot of games, a lot of MMOs have, over at least the last 3 years, have tried to throw in a bunch of bosses that now are immune to CC, or some CCs, but more importantly, they're immune to taunt. That completely breaks your group dynamic, because now you've effectively made your tank unimportant. So I hope that within the whole Interrupt Armor family chain thing, that they really kind of identify, if you have a tank, how that's going to be affected in there, because that basically makes certain bosses almost either unplayable, or requires a group to really be tightly oiled and gelled, work together in order to even overcome it. It makes pugging almost impossible, right?
The other side of the thing that I want to mention is that Interrupt Armor isn't like a boss only or a creature only thing. Like, players will be able to put Interrupt Armor on themselves or on other players. So that makes like another interesting dynamic, not even just for PvP. I mean, definitely for PvP, but also like in PvE. If the raid boss is going to do like a big, stunning attack or something like that, you're going to want to coordinate that and put it on your tank in time to actually be able to absorb that stun. So you don't have to do your breakout gameplay after the fact. You can actually sort of prevent your CC as well, which is, I think, another really neat thing.
All right, next up, I want to talk about the leveling curve and how many hours it looks like it's going to take. But first, I want to tell you guys about a great deal we got going on with Netflix. If you guys have not tried it out, I want to hook you guys up. The free 30-day trial. All you got to do, head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. Just use that URL, sign up, and get a free 30-day trial supporting Gamebreaker. Support Gamebreaker by supporting our sponsors. Love the Netflix. House of Cards, all up there. Orange the New Black, getting really good reviews. Another one. Breaking Bad, of course. Brand new episodes of Breaking Bad up there. Of course, awesome show. Check it out. Netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. Sign up today for a free 30-day trial. All right, so for leveling, they're looking at, it looks like about 150 hours to go level 1 through 50. Right now, I believe they said in closed beta, it's closer to 250 hours, which sounds to me like it probably translates to a lot of grindiness at high levels. What about the 150 number, though? I feel like I'm kind of happy about it. I actually feel like for a modern MMO, that actually sounds like a lot of time, doesn't it?
Definitely, compared to the last couple years. Yeah, most games, I think Guild Wars, it was 80? Was that the right number? I forget the number that they were saying, how many hours you had out of Guild Wars. I don't even remember Tor, but, long story short, it seems to be somewhere between 60 and 80, which, for whatever reason, people are able to do inside of 4 to 5 days if they have, if they're unemployed or underemployed. But with 150 hours, that's like a quintessential change. I mean, that's you're looking at 2 weeks to 3 weeks for, I guess, the average player who's really dedicated, and maybe a month for, I guess, someone who's playing, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours here and there, off and on, taking breaks, casual. But I think that definitely moves the nut down the road for the folks who are going to get there overnight. So it's a good thing in my mind.
I definitely hope that it actually does end up being 150 hours, though, instead of... Because I feel like whenever I'm reading about MMOs that are coming up, then the number that they always list ends up being a lot higher than the number that they actually, end up seeing. Which I mean, like, beyond just the people who are rushing, I feel like even my own personal number ends up feeling like a lot shorter than that.
Sure, and I imagine that once players get in there, people are going to become super efficient and figure out ways to cut that number down quite drastically, but, hopefully early on, I would say the 150 number probably sounds pretty good. It's probably pretty like average kind of playing style. On flying mounts, the translation wasn't 100% clear on this, but as we've known, they're thinking about it. That's about what we know. It's possible in the engine, that's for sure. How do you guys feel about flying mounts?
I don't really like them in respect to... especially in a game where like a quarter of like your path system is exploring. Like, I feel like that would just break so much of the gameplay. Like, if you're gonna actually just be able to fly around and do things. I know that they've talked about like different ideas, like having like fuel for your flying mount or something, so that it's a little bit limited in some respect. But I'd rather just not have flying mounts personally.
Right, Mark?
I kind of dig it. I mean, I didn't really play WoW long enough to even get a mount. So. But I mean, I do hear and understand the reason why a lot of developers, and I wouldn't say hardcore gamers, but I'd say, and I don't want to sound insulting, but maybe more mature, worldly MMO players who've played a bunch of different MMOs don't like it. And it's kind of what Farhan was saying, is because what it does is it breaks the community. That's the number one thing that it says that it breaks. I don't know, because I've never had one, so that's the reason.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. I mean, with flying mounts, especially early on in a game, you don't run into anybody. Everybody's just flying around. You don't even interact with people. So, I mean,
yeah.
I'm like, I like the convenience of flying mounts. I don't necessarily love them when games launch. I kind of actually like WoW's approach to it, where they don't allow it for a certain amount of time, and then once zones are kind of exhausted, they kind of just go like, all right, like, we know you guys got to go through this zone like a gajillion times. Most of the people are done with it. Here you go, fly through it. That's totally fine. So maybe gating it.
Do you remember the days, though, back before you even had little icons on your map to even show you where your quest was? You'd have to walk up to a guard and be like, /where Joe Blow, and he just points in whatever direction this is, and then you got to keep on going that way. So, I mean, back then, people learned the map. People knew exactly how to get from A to B. You didn't have to be like, can you please show me how to get there? They'd be like, no, fool, you better bounce in and get on over there. So I get what people are saying, people who've been around and played a lot of older games where they feel like it's dumbing down. But to the other side of that, is after you've already done it, after you've already been there, it's a whole quality of life thing. Because I logged out plenty of times because I just don't feel like running across the map to go do whatever. I'm like, I'll get to it. This will, be a quality of life issue, and hopefully, to your point, maybe they add it over time. Like, okay, you've got to be level 30 before you can get it, or you have to have passed through the zone, and now you're on such and such quest line where if you hear, you can do it. I don't know.
What do you guys think of this move? This is actually pretty cool. So solo players are definitely going to be important, even to raiders. So some of the rare crafting materials will actually only be available through solo content, not group content, which is actually kind of cool. I mean, Carbine's, we've heard their stance before on this. They know that a lot of people do solo in the game. So I think it's another good move for them, actually giving them some actual content that kind of, it's got meaning towards higher end game, rare loot, while they could still play the game like they sort of want to play. Because I feel like solo content in that respect has kind of been left out in the cold for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think that this is exactly the kind of move that they need to do if they want to actually make solo players feel relevant and feel like they're actually contributing and doing something useful for their guild or for even just for themselves. That you can at least go on the market and sell whatever resources that you're getting. And this isn't even like a power thing, really. It's not like okay, like your solo player is now just as powerful as a raider or something because they've done it. No, it's actually like a separate form of reward that you can give to your solo player that will actually make them feel good. And I think that's exactly what they need to keep doing.
Couldn't agree more.
Are you looking forward to a lot of the solo content though? Because you're such a big guild, Mark.
I mean, maybe for alts, but the big thing I'm looking forward to is just doing as much content in groups as I can. I mean, to be quite frank. So this will just actually help out folks who just want to do their own thing, probably on an alt, or strategically, for the build, right?
They spoke a little bit about pre-ordering WildStar. They said all they really said was there will be perks for pre-ordering, but no details yet. I don't know. The big one I think we probably can expect is some sort of early access period. Maybe some cosmetic stuff on top of that. That's really it. Not really much info there. Next up, Gamerzines.com spoke to Jeremy Gaffney. This time they talked about the possibility of a lifetime subscription. So when they asked him, Jeremy said this. He said, probably not. I think they're lame. And here's why I think they're lame. He said, it's because you have the least knowledge ever about a game when you're first buying it. We have to earn every subscriber we get. We don't get to be Star Wars where you loved it as a kid and now you got the game. We don't get to be blah, blah. No. He says, we're a new IP, a new developer. We have to earn everybody's money and respect with the game. Jeremy Gaffney for president, everybody. Running.
But when I think of lifetime subscription for an MMO, I think of STO, Star Trek Online, which I hear is now is an okay game, but man, that just didn't end well, I don't think. At least for people who played it for the first 30 days. So, yeah, anything that's going to have like a lifetime subscription, I would kind of avoid. Right?
I mean, they are lame. I mean, they really do. Like they do cater to I think probably to some extent a small percentage of the gamers out there who love the IP. But again, they don't have an IP to back it on. They don't have a development team or core studio to sort of back it on. So I don't know. I can't even imagine the amount of lifetime subs that they would make would be like that significant. I mean, I'm sure there would be some, but I don't know. I think this is kind of a better way to kind of just to earn everybody's respect.
So I've been thinking more about the statement I just made about STO, which is made by the same mother company that owns Carbine, right? So it comes from the same family of companies that have done it before. So I don't know. Never say never, right?
It's the kind of thing your producer is able to say when you're really confident about your own game and you feel like you can actually make that statement without it backfiring in your face a little bit later when you're talking to the executives. And they're like, why didn't you have a lifetime subscription so we could get a little bit more money out of it? It's like, well...
Yeah, actually, STO is Perfect World. That's not NCSoft.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Have either of you guys ever purchased a lifetime and gotten burned? I've never done it. No, me neither.
When people get burned on it, I'll tell you that.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see. But I like Jeremy's approach. I kind of agree. I think they're kind of lame, and who knows? So it's almost like it feels a little creepy. So what's up next? MMO Reporter Network spoke to Chris Lynch about the Telegraph colors. This is really interesting. So there are actually 5 Telegraph colors now in the game. Blue is how you see where you're aiming. Red is something bad. Get out of it. Green is something good, get in it. Purple is something good for the enemy, keep them out of it. And orange is your allies' offensive telegraphs. The system's getting a lot more complex and detailed than we originally saw. I don't think we've seen all of these, in the past. We hadn't seen all these kind of things. Having that... having all of this information sort of displayed to you without having to look at the UI sounds really interesting. I almost can't imagine how much of it's going to be on the screen at once, though. It can even be distracting. But the real concern here, I think, for a lot of people is, what about colorblind people?
Yeah. I think it's definitely going to be one of those things, because I know that somewhere on Reddit, Jeremy Gaffney actually, he was responding to a lot of people's concerns in different posts on Reddit with, the posts for the different interviews and things. One of the things he was saying was that, at least telegraphs would be, disableable. Like, one person was saying, I hate the idea of telegraphs in general. Like, I like being able to watch the mobs doing that thing. And he said that they'd be disableable. So at the very least, like they're going to like that level of option. So I feel like if they just allow people to change the colors as well to actually make it so that colorblind people can pick. Because I mean, like it's hard to just like have a single solution for colorblind people anyway, because there's so many different kinds of colorblindness. Like you got red, green, and I admit I don't know all the other ones, but like lots of different kinds. You can't just have one solution for them anyway. So having them able to actually choose the colors that they feel they can differentiate would be really nice. Also, I want that myself because I don't like the idea of orange being my ally's offensive telegraph, because orange is sort of close to red in my head, and I'd rather it not be. It would be more bluish and like flip purple and orange.
Yeah, something I found was funny. I did not know this, but it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's not on colorblindAwareness.org. Apparently, 1 in 12 men are colorblind. 8% of the men in the world are affected with color blindness. It's not as it's 1 in 200 in women. But man, I didn't know that 1 in 12, 1 out of every 12 male in the world is colorblind. So it's actually a pretty high percentage. I actually thought it would have been a lot lower than that. So I don't know. Hopefully there's a colorblind mode put in place. But I don't think we've heard anything about it yet. Seen some games do it. Not many. Not many. I don't know. Somebody had asked that question.
Can I mention change it with a pattern? You know, a lot of times they'll.
I feel like that would get even more confusing when they start overlapping, and you're like, okay, is that the crisscross pattern, or is that 2 slash patterns just happening to overlap?
On head to sharpshooter. That's a crappy idea, Taylor. All right, sorry.
Can I mention one other thing that I saw like recently in one of the Gamescom interview things? Like one thing that I think is really cool about in one of the interviews that they did with Jeremy Gaffney, they were talking about how they're keeping dungeon content fresh and like different ways that when he's talking to like their junior designers who are joining the team and talking about streamlining stuff, it's like, you know, when you're thinking of other games, like a lot of games have shifted their dungeon experience from being like these large labyrinthine kind of things, like for World of Warcraft players, like something like Blackrock Depths or something like that, where it's like there's bosses everywhere and sort of a labyrinth. You have to actually explore it. To like the little hallway boss dungeons, where like you just keep going down the hallway, you have a boss, you go down a little bit further, you have another boss, and you go down the hallway a little bit more, and you have another boss. And so what he was thinking is like, okay, that makes a lot of sense for World of Warcraft because like, you know, they added that in later on in the game after people were getting a little bit tired of it. They sort of want to get through their dungeons a little bit faster. And so what they're actually thinking of doing though is to have, and if you saw any of the like the dungeon video footage that they had out of Gamescom, like these dungeons are pretty damn big, like they look huge. And so well, you know, the way that they're trying to counter it from getting too repetitive or too much of a case where like no one wants to go over and hit that boss over in the corner or something like that is when you go into the dungeon, you're actually going to get like a random set of objectives. And so you'll still have sort of like a single railway experience of like, okay, you're going to go to this boss, then you're going to go to this boss, and then you're going to go to that boss or something like that. But it'll be different each time you go into the dungeon, and it'll still feel like, okay, there's more going on within this place. So it accomplishes the same goal. This is the same thing that I was talking about with crowd control. You know, it accomplishes the same solution to your problem of, okay, the dungeon feels too long or it feels not focused enough. But it's a different kind of solution that makes sense for a new game that to actually feel like you're in this whole world, and it brings up the immersion.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of like hopefully more MMOs coming in the future actually do like procedurally generated dungeons somehow, where they actually even the layouts could possibly somewhat change, you know, and kind of trash and different mobs. I would love that because yeah, running the same dungeon over and over and over gets kind of boring. I
mean, they have said that for raid bosses. Sorry. For raid bosses, at the very least, they've said that you know, they'll have like the order of raid bosses. That's something that they've confirmed that's something that they're planning on doing, is having the order of raid bosses that you fight them being changing from week to week. So I think they could do some sort of procedural generation for the room. And what would be neat is like, okay, if this boss happens to be in this room, then its mechanics are slightly different than if it was in a different room or something like that.
Farhan's going down the rabbit hole of crazy game design. They're like, yeah, that's not happening, Farhan. Sorry. That's not happening.
He's been hanging out with Damien Schubert. He's got his own wall of crazy and stuff.
Seriously, he does. Mark Taylor, follow him on Twitter at Guild Umbra. All the way calling in from Myrtle Beach. Have a great vacation, brother.
Thank you.
See you next week for some more Unicorn Duck. Farhan Siddiqui, follow him on Twitter at Unindel, UNINDEL. He's still in the same place. He's not at the beach. He doesn't have sunburn. He's just here with us. And you can follow me at Gary Gannon and follow Gamebreaker TV. Oh, Gamebreaker TV's got a brand new look. Redid the whole entire website. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's completely redone. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Is this Gamebreaker 12.0?
This is Gamebreaker 12.0. Yes.
That's nice.
Technology websites change every 8 to 10 months. And that's what we are. We change
Is
about
it
every 8 to 10 months.
Really? It feels a lot shorter than that.
No, we've been over a year, I think, on the last one, so it was due. But check it out. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out. Let us know what you think of it. Brand new layout, streamlined. People seem to be really loving it. So, and don't forget about our Hearthstone giveaway. We have a bunch of new sites now. Hearth Nation is one of them. It is part of the Gamebreaker Nation websites. Go to hearthnation.com to sign up for the Hearthstone, I should say, beta key. Hey guys, have a great week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next Monday at 3 PDT for some more WildStar chitter chatter. Have a great week. See you next week.